using the chat to send those questions in. While we're waiting for any questions that might pop up, one of the things that I get asked regularly is, how is the school year going? And how do you see things going in the district? And I'll just say, really positive start to the school year. So many good things happening in Sycamore. Um, our teachers have done an amazing job working through some significant curriculum changes. Um, really making sure that they're getting deep into the learning with the students. And no one loves change, but when it happens, sometimes you learn new strategies. There are new things that you take in, and can really grow as a person and as a leader and as a teacher in the classroom. So they're in year 2 of that transition. People are, I think, pretty excited about the new curriculums. And it wasn't exciting to go through the change, but it's pretty exciting when you start to learn and see some of the connections for our students. So very proud of our staff for going through that process, digging in deep. But outside of that, the schools have been amazing. The students are doing amazing things on athletic fields and the classrooms and theaters, and all the music programs. It's just been a fun start to the school year, with so many things happening and so many people doing some amazing things within the organization. So that's usually one of the first and foremost questions I get asked when I'm out and about is, how are things going? Things are going great. Another question that often comes in is, what's it looking like financially? How are the finances? What's happening with finances? How do you feel about the financial position of the district? I would say I feel really good that we had our last levy in 2016. We were able to commit to the community at that point that the levy was going to last 5 years, and we are so thankful for the people that worked on ensuring that that was a successful campaign. We got through. We were able to uphold that commitment. We're in year 9, heading into year 10 of that commitment. So I think anytime you can double the commitment that you've made to the district, it's in our community, it's a pretty good situation. What do I see happening in the long run? Eventually that levy is going to run out, or that funding is going to run out. So, if you've been paying attention to our board meetings, we're having a lot of deep conversation around the finances and when we might think we have to ask for new funding. If you've been paying attention to, what's been happening at a state level, unfortunately, we have lots of things happening at the state level, lots of different interactions, lots of different legislation that's coming in, lots of discussions between legislators. And but I will say a lot of it is leading towards discussions around removal of property taxes. And if you know anything about schools, that's what we're dependent on, is property taxes to help fund our schools. Many of you may not know, Sycamore is locally funded, heavily locally funded, almost 85 plus percent locally funded. We only get about 10% of our funding from the state level. So obviously we're very concerned about some of the things that are happening at the state level, but we don't want to have any issues where the funding from the state level is being dried up, or that we're not able to get funding for our students. So being able to fund our programs and ensuring we are able to take care of all of our students and make sure we're able to fund our classrooms, it's incredibly important to us. So, we're going to keep monitoring all the legislation, monitoring all the information from the state. But we also have to have deep conversations with our community about, we want to maintain the level of excellence that we've had at Sycamore. We want to be able to maintain all of our programs, and um, we have so much good stuff in the district, so many unique opportunities for students. We don't want any of those to be taken away um, by a loss of funding. So um, we're being responsible. We're looking at every opportunity to be able to conserve and save money when we can. But that's not impacting our education. We don't want our educational programming impacted um, in a negative way of any kind. So hopefully that's a good overview of just some um, information about um, our funding, our finances, and all of those different things. Question: tell us who will be on the new board, who won the election. Sure, happy to answer that. So there were 3 spots that were up for the board election. There were 6 candidates that were running for that, and we were 2 of our incumbent candidates, Mrs. Bitter and Mr. Ballant, were successful in being reelected to the board, and then a gentleman named Will Gosnell. Mr. Gosnell is has been elected through that process, and he will start in January. So the current board finishes through December, and the new board starts in January. And feel free to send those questions in. I'm sorry I had to switch computers, so um, just wanted to make sure that I'm starting to see the questions now. One of them just came in. Any high-level updates or changes on the recent security incident at Mapledale? I want to make sure that I'm clear so that people understand. When there was a recent security incident, it was some individuals that were just walking the communities. Turned out to be a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old from a local school that was part of their Friday activity. So, it was scary when it happened, but, we did do some investigation and find out, some things around those students and what they were doing and what they were up to, and, not trying to cause any harm to our students. But it always helps us learn from situations. So, what I would say is high level updates. Just we learned more. We were able to make some adjustments to our protocol. We were certainly able to look at some changes at the school level of how we would handle situations, communication. Definitely looking at ways to better monitor the area, and again, you learn from those things. Question just came in, and I want to make sure, Mrs. Schmidt, if I'm missing questions, because I'm starting to see these and looks like they're direct messages to me. So I'm not seeing a major chat. You may be seeing it, but one of the questions that just came in is what are the biggest challenges that the new school board will need to tackle? I would say the biggest challenge is what I just talked about with finances. That's a big one. Looking at financial aspects of our district. I would also say that one of the major issues is we've been doing a 2-year plus study on healthier school start times, and trying to look at what would it look like if our high school started at 8 o'clock. And if you look at all the research that's out there, high schools should start at 8 or later. The recommendation by the American Association of, I think it's Pediatrics, is 8:30. I think that would be a hard jump from 7:20 to 8:30, but we're certainly going to do our due diligence and look into what would it look like if we could get to something that starts with an 8. So we have a good group of individuals from our Sycamore Advisory Commission that are helping us with that 3rd year of that study. And I think our board is very committed to making sure that we can do that work. We can have those conversations But we need you as community members to weigh in on those things. What we can't do is let our own personal situations cause us not to look at the deeper research, which is what is the negative impact on our students for starting so early? I will tell you, one of the biggest things that hit me when we saw the results of the research was we are one we are one of 25 top rated schools, high schools in the state, and of those 25, we have the earliest start time. And it's not even close. It's by 25 minutes. And that really worried me when I looked at, wow, that's pretty significant to be the first one starting and the next one doesn't start till 25 minutes later. So it's a really important topic. I care deeply about our students and their mental health and well-being. I want to make sure that we are um, being well taken care of and feeling good and ready for school so that they're not too tired, that they're not ready to learn. And that's probably one of the most important things. Trying to think of any other major challenges for the school board. I think those are going to be some pretty significant ones for them to look at. So, and I think on top of that, they are our guides and connections to legislation and legislators. I need our school board and our community to be advocates for our district and be communicating with our legislators about what are we seeing, what are we feeling. I just had a recent meeting with one of our state senators, and I will just say the information that he shared was not real positive, and really concerning when I think about the impact of all the decisions that are happening on public schools. So, we shared our perspective with those individuals and making sure that they hear from us and making sure that they hear what are the needs of Sycamore. So, but I think our board is up for the challenge. We always, when we have new board members, it's important to build a team and work together collaboratively to make sure we're representing the interests of the school district and the community. And I think that's an important concept for us to be looking into. So I'm glad that somebody made a comment, just saying like there are some, and I should have probably went a little deeper, but something about a comment about just utilizing Cincinnati Children's as a resource for talking about the school start times. I agree. Actually, I can tell you, I believe it's December 4th and December 11th. We are going to be hosting I know one of them, and we'll get some information out to you. One of them is going to be in person. One of them is going to be virtual, but we are going to host 2 sessions to talk about that research. And Dr. Beebe from Cincinnati Children's is going to be there in person and on the virtual to talk about the research. What does he know about the impact of that research? I mean, really, if you look up any research about healthier school start times, it's pretty crystal clear. But appreciate you sharing that comment. Again, we're going to need to hear from all of you, and we know it's a complex problem, but I think together as a community we can solve the problem and help make it a better situation for our students. So, do I have any language or advocacy priorities we can do as parents to communicate with legislators? We will be getting some things out to you very soon. One of the things that will be coming out is a letter that is going to be signed from all Hamilton County, well, I won't say all, but the majority of Hamilton County superintendents and treasurers, basically letting you know about and letting our legislators know about how our feelings are about some of the important topics that they're discussing that I've already shared. So we will be getting that communication out, and we can also draft some language or email drafts that you can send. I will say our legislators do not necessarily read if it's just cut and pasted. You have to personalize it a little bit, but we can give you some talking points that would be huge for our community to reach out to legislators. I always say legislators don't necessarily always listen to school people, but they listen to voters. So if they feel like they're getting a lot of communication from voters, it does cause them to pause and redirect. And I think that's the power of our voices, as long as we use them. So I appreciate that question. I appreciate our willingness as a community to step up and reach out and make comments to our legislators about what's going on from a Sycamore standpoint. Other questions? One thing I'll mention that if you haven't been watching our school board meetings or you hadn't paid attention to a recent school board meetings, we did make some changes, and we've been sending out communication about some of our kindergarten. We are seeing more and more of requests for full day kindergarten, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that we um, accommodate every family that wants full day kindergarten. We are seeing less and less requests for half day kindergarten, to the point that we are struggling to fill half day kindergarten sections. And even over the last couple of years, we've combined sections at different schools and consolidated them out of the home schools to kind of a centrally located place. At one of our last board meetings, we did make the decision to move forward with moving all half day requests to Mapledale Elementary starting with the next school year. So if you have an upcoming kindergarten, or families or neighbors that will have an incoming kindergartner that are not doing full day, it's just something they need to be aware of. And we did our team, Mr. Lovell, one of our assistant superintendents, led a session with kindergarten families. There were about 25 different individuals there that gave input and shared perspective on that decision. And we appreciate those sessions. And we're going to try to do more sessions with our community to let you weigh in on topics. That's the best way that we can get information, is through a two-way conversation. So really appreciate Mr. Lovell's leadership on that meeting, but also the number of community members that showed up and engaged on that topic, because it's an important topic for our community. And we want to make sure our youngest learners are ready to go in kindergarten. So that was an important discussion. Excuse me. A question came in about students being vulnerable to substance abuse, including vaping. Are there strategies to prevent such detrimental habits? I know that we have brought in some education and counseling for those types of habits to try to help detour students from making that decision. I will say, I'm going to knock on wood, we have seen a reduction in our vaping and this year, and the discipline regarding our vaping. I will say the high school has done an amazing job really monitoring the hallways and bathrooms. And it's a credit to the staff and the administration getting together and saying, you know what, we're gonna really police these hallways. We're going to be present. We're going to be visible. I haven't been in the high school yet where I haven't seen staff members in the hallways monitoring and really making sure that that's not going to be an issue for us. So I have to give them a lot of credit for making sure that that happens. And I think the easiest way to prevent those habits is by not allowing it to be accessible to them. I will say I'm very concerned about the number of vape shops that keep popping up in the community, the accessibility for our students. But I will say I'm very happy to be able to say this year I've heard less comments about vaping being a major issue. So I'm hoping that's on a downward track. I also was on a text string with all the GMC superintendents today talking about vaping, and everyone else was seeing that same trend. So I hope that continues because, I agree that we don't want our students vulnerable to substance abuse, including vaping. Um, any updates to share regarding gifted education in Sycamore at elementary and higher levels? Um, what proportion of students qualify? I do know that we are qualifying more students. And when I say more students, we have a number of students that qualify for gifted services, and we're trying to ensure that more students are getting access to gifted services. So um, I do know that there will be some upcoming information through our board meetings that we're going to talk about gifted education, give the board an update on gifted education. So stay tuned for that. I would say at the highest level, what I'm able to share today is that we are always looking for ways to make sure that we're giving more students access um, to education and trying to remove some of the barriers so that we're seeing more students challenged um, at some of those courses that they can gain access through. So we call it kind of removing some of the gates, some of the barriers. But stay tuned. We will definitely be engaging in that conversation at a deeper level at a uh, time near you. So let's see. Half day kindergarten. Will half day kindergarten continue to be free? Yes. We are only able to, we have to, by law, offer half day kindergarten. That will continue no matter what we do. Um, is the only way to access full day kindergarten through tuition? Yes, currently. Going back to one of the very first questions, what's another challenge that the board's going to have to undertake? I really do believe, and I doubt that there's any team member on our team that would disagree, including any board member. I think we all believe that the best thing that we can do is find a way, as part of our next funding cycle, to find a way to make full day kindergarten free for everyone. And I do think that's something we want to see happen because I know our team believes that that would give everyone equal access to the same opportunities. And certainly, if people have the inability to pay the tuition and qualify, we do offer scholarships and things like that to be able to allow them access to full day kindergarten. But yes, currently, right now, there is tuition based full day kindergarten. And if we were to remove that, it's just something that we have to be aware of. It's about $1 million that we're adding to our budget. So again, we're trying to think of ways that we can, how can we fit that in the next time when we're ready to make some of those decisions. So I see your applause. I agree with you. Let's figure it out as a community and make that happen for our families. A board candidate suggested a financial committee. Would the board consider it? I do think the board would consider that. I think it was a great suggestion by a board candidate. And I do think you have to put the right members on that team. And I love your feedback here. Just, looking for people in our district that have, good financial acumen to be able to really help lend their expertise to us. So I will bring that up with the school board. I think that's a great idea to share, and I think our treasurer would be open to that as well. I know that she has worked other places, and that was a thing that she did in other places. So I do think it's a good idea and is something we should look at. So the board does have to agree to that because it's usually when we have these larger, I'll say, committees that would impact decisions that they make, it's considered a board committee and they would have to approve it. And there are some guidelines that we have to follow around it. So, but nothing wrong with having that committee. I would also, again, love to see us figure out how to make that part of a work session so that we can engage in those topics as a community because we want to be transparent and open and honest about our finances. We want people to feel like that, hey, they're good stewards of our tax dollars. They're spending money the right way, and here's what they're spending it on. So And it looks like a comment about just making sure that we're advocating for funding for full day kindergarten. So, absolutely, um, agree with that. Other questions, other things that are on your mind? One of the questions that we get often is how is the transition going to Canvas? And if you didn't know what Canvas is or was, or maybe you're hopefully you're familiar with it now, because as a parent in our district, I'm very familiar with it because I get updates all the time. Canvas is our system where our teachers are posting assignments, their grades are being posted, communication. Um, I used it when I was teaching in college. I wasn't part of the decision making process necessarily. A group of staff members and um, team members all studied this for multiple years. They tried out different ones and came up with that, you know what, this is the right path to go on with Canvas. Um, they definitely enjoyed, I think, the ride or the process to get to that point, and I think they feel like they did pick the right one. What we're trying to do is streamline all the different systems that parents were being asked to use and try to consolidate so that you only need to go one place to get information. So we're constantly trying to find ways to um, streamline information so that it's easier on our parents to find the information that we're looking for. So we'll continue to do that. Um, are you still committed to connecting with specific communities like you are with the Asian business community? I didn't connect necessarily with just the Asian business community. My goal when I became superintendent was to try to find ways to connect with all of our families, and when I say that, from all different walks of life and populations, one of the things that I think people forget in our district is we have a lot of different, when I say communities, um, like one of our subgroups is our Asian subgroup. They were about 18% of our students, and I just wasn't sure if people were connecting with them. So when I reached out to the Asian community, they were very receptive to giving me really positive and sometimes critical feedback. So I'm always open to meeting with groups of people and leaders from our community to get feedback that is helpful for us to lead our school district. So we're going to be leading some community conversations, some opportunities for people to engage with us from all around our community. So, yes, love being able to get out and connect, and really don't hesitate to invite us out to things that are happening in the community. One of the things that I love from the Asian leaders that I met, they invited me to numerous activities and events out in the community, and really exposed me and my family to things that we would not have probably known about had we not been invited. So please do that. Please continue to ask us um, for that and for us to come out. Uh, Question about a group that we used to have called the Culturally Responsive Practices Team. It has been resurrected. The question is, will it be resurrected under a different name? We call it the Aves Culture and Climate Team, and it has been resurrected. There are multiple people on it, and we are getting deeper in that work. And actually, we'll be meeting this week to have more conversations in that group. So, great question. Uh, let's see, would we ever be able? Sorry, I have to read some of these because they're longer. Uh, I don't know much, but I will tell. So one of the question that came in was about just going back to having final forms, calendar, and fees all pay in one spot. I will say I am not super knowledgeable about the different ways that we pay fees. I know that um, Somebody mentioned pay schools. Um, I will get back to you on that one because I'm not sure and I'm not deeply involved in those discussions because that comes out of our treasurer's office. So, but I will ask the question and see, what's the long term plan for that. So, let's see. Track resurfacing. Yes. Great question. And if you, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm going to bring up two other things with that. If you have noticed our high school, and if you didn't see the communication from our athletic director, our turf that just got laid down last year, there was a manufacturing issue. Nothing that made the turf unplayable, nothing that made it unsafe, but it was just I'll say a visual look, and it just almost looked like there were lines through it. You couldn't really tell greatly the difference, but it was enough that it was like, man, we paid for this, and you want what you paid for to be well done, and what you purchased. So if you've been up there, they are ripping up the entire turf to replace it down with new turf. Which, if you drive by it, it would feel like, wow, we just put that down. But that's not being done at any cost to the district. It was, again, a manufacturing issue. The track is definitely in need of resurfacing. I do know that quotes have been received, and now it's just timing and trying to get that done. So, um, my understanding, if I'm remembering correctly from our team, it is slotted to be done spring summer this coming school year. So we will get some information out about that and make sure that we're clear in communication. But that was the last check. But the last time I was out on the track, it is definitely in need of repair. There are some spots that are cracking and starting to wear thin um, on the track. So great question. I will definitely. I'm assuming that this question is talking about the high school. Can they add more convenient visitor parking spots? And volunteers never know where to go. If you're talking about Sycamore High School, I will definitely pass that on to the high school team. I will say, as a now high school parent, I appreciate the new traffic flow at the high school in the mornings because it's causing less backup and less issues. Um, but I'll just say, when I look at the facility, it's much more smooth and it flows much better. I really appreciate the high school administration and teachers that are out there directing traffic in the morning, and the police officers that are out there directing traffic. But I will pass that along about more convenient visitor parking spots and see if we can't come up with a solution around that. A question came in about um, what is the board or district policy on selecting age appropriate reading material, providing parents notice of sensitive topics? Certainly, those are good questions to ask directly of your teachers, directly of the building. But from a highest level, we certainly want to make sure that the curriculum that we're selecting, the books that we're selecting to read, have age appropriate material in it. If we ever believe, or if our teachers believe as they're working through a topic, that there is a concern over something that might be read or sensitivity, they're going to try, we do our best to always communicate that, let our parents know. And certainly, if it's, every parent has a different perspective, but if it's something that the parent is very adamant about, that's something we take into consideration, and we can always offer an alternative assignment if we can't agree that there's a way to teach the material or teach the book in a way that doesn't cause people to be upset. We've had to deal with these situations in the past, and we try to handle it with sensitivity and care, and we don't want anybody feeling like that we're teaching materials that would be upsetting to students, but we also don't want to take away literature and critical thinking, and obviously, I don't want to say exposure to issues, but we also want our students to be able to think through things. And a lot of the times in the book, I'll say sensitive topics aren't necessarily at the forefront of what we're trying to teach. There's usually a um, concept or something behind the scenes that is um, in the book that we need to teach the concept more than the actual words or content, if that makes sense. So, but I encourage you, if you ever have that question, reach out to your child's teacher, start with a conversation. Our staff members are definitely are sensitive to that and want to make sure that they're doing right by your family and the kids, and making sure that people feel supported in that journey. So, uh, volunteer therapy dogs utilized in Sycamore schools. Um, I would say we do have some partnerships with local police departments, some other places that we do bring in some therapy dogs from time to time. We definitely don't have anything that I would say is like consistently, like on a certain day every week or anything like that. But there are times that we bring them in. We certainly have brought them in when we've had to deal with tragic events. We are lucky enough to have great partnerships with the city of Blue Ash, the city of Montgomery, the local sheriff's department. We have other resources within the Cincinnati area that all have therapy dogs and are willing to show up and bring them in. And I was just in the junior high the other day, and one of the therapy dogs was in. So it definitely does bring a smile to the students' faces and to the staff's faces. And when they're present, it does make us um, feel good. And we do, I think everybody is happy to see them. But we haven't consistently talked about, doing anything like that on a consistent basis or on a regular basis across our schools. But certainly, I will say it comes up from time to time, but I think we're pretty happy with the partnerships that we have. Um, so somebody mentioned about the high school starting at 8:30. I doubt we will do all the research. It's probably not going to get to 8:30, but let's just say it gets to 8. I really appreciate your question. What happens to my first grader that gets on the bus at 8:20? Our goal in this, I do not want our elementary starting any later or getting out any later than they do now. We would have to really look at how we're busing some of these areas, and some of these tiers is what we call them. We have 3 tiers of busing. We'll have to really look at the tiers of busing and see what we can do, how creative we can be. Um, but there are ways to make this work. So what will happen to your first grader is nothing, because I do not want to see our elementary students get moved earlier. I don't feel very comfortable with them being super early, even though people always say, well, they're the first ones up. Yeah, but I don't know that I want a kindergartner getting on a bus at 6:20 in the morning in the dark either. So it's a balancing act. We'll have to look at, within our tiers of transportation, what can we do to get more people um, utilizing our resources and not blowing our budget. But there are some creative ways, and we'll be out there talking to you about this. But to answer your question, we will make sure that your first grader will not be having that occur to them. Did I see somewhere that our district is spending 5 million on playground equipment? We did not commit to any expenditure of funds on playground equipment. One of the things that had come up that we wanted to investigate, and the board asked us to investigate, was what was the cost of inclusive playgrounds. And that means that they are accessible, universally accessible to all students. It was going to cost, to be able to do that at the buildings that have playgrounds, it would be $5.5 million. And so we have to figure out a way to either chunk some of that off, put it into our capital improvement plan, or be thinking in our long-term planning for the next funding cycle. How do we put that in our excuse me, into our capital improvement budget. So we did not commit to that. It is not something that we committed to, and it's a really good question. Added on to that is, are you concerned about finances with legislation changes? Absolutely, and that's why we're being very cautious of any major expenditures right now. We certainly appreciate all the great donations that we've taken in to be able to do some of the major projects that we've done. But every decision can impact our ability to um, continue operations. And that's the main goal is we have to continue with normal operations, making sure we can engage in the learning process. And that's always top priority. The other things is warm, safe, dry. We have to make sure our buildings are warm, safe, dry. We can continue to operate. And then we have to look at all those other projects. So it's a complicated matrix. I wish we could approve every project that people brought to us, but and it's critically important. We want to be able to provide our students universal access, but we do have to manage everything in and of itself to try to figure out how can we make all these things fit. And we're not going to be able to make every project work, but we'll set priorities and we'll try to find ways to look at those in the long-term planning. Uh, Looks like a question about athletics related to the high school. Is there a plan to complete the field house project by the football stadium? The multi-purpose stadium has a field house. I do believe the interior, there is some drywall up. Um, I do believe that there's some things that we can do within our own staff to help complete more of that, like finish the drywall, put up paint, and make sure it's more of a complete look. If you are talking about, there was a plan to have a visitor field house with restrooms and a concession stand on the other end of the field so that the visiting crowd and the home crowd never cross. Right now, there's no funding, there's no donations to be able to do that. And again, that would have to be built into our long-term plan. Same thing with the next question, upgrading the weight room in the Gregory Center. Um, actually, I heard some kids talking about this today, that it's with all the teams being in there, it's very crowded. And is that how can we expand it? How can we make it more user friendly for all of the athletes? And we will certainly continue to look at that. I know the weight room upgrade has been talked about through the boosters in the athletic department, through some of our donors. So we'll have to look at that long term and figure out how we can make that work. But again, same thing, funding a project like that is going to have to be part of our long term planning, not short term. So there's a question about the track and the use of the track and being able to practice. And again, I would say that would be a great conversation with the track coaches, with the athletic director. I don't have any specific information. I haven't walked the track completely myself. I've had some conversations with our athletic director, but please reach out to them. I'm sure they will talk about what their plan is on how to manage that situation and how they can make sure that they're taking care of our student athletes. Because I would agree with you. We want to make sure our student athletes are healthy and safe, and we do not want them hurting themselves um, with those issues. There may be a way to patch it in the interim until we can get to the full replacement. If it's decided, when would a new high school start time be implemented? That is a great question. I wish I could tell you that it's a fast moving process, but I would tell you that my best guess would be that we kind of said that we would look at a 2-year implementation. So we'll finish more of the research 25, 26, um, go out and talk with the community 26, 27, and be able to implement it for the 27, 28 school year. Now, I say all that, but it could change sooner. But I would say that's a good, just I'll say long-term plan, to be able to make sure that we're doing all the right steps, making sure we're engaging all the right people, and making sure that the community feels like they had time to be heard and adjust. It definitely would, it would not affect a staff member's contract hours. It would just, and when I say contract hours, I think our staff have a 7 hour, 45-minute day. It would just shift that day with the start time. So more to come on that because I don't have those things perfectly situated at this point, but certainly those are important topics, and staff is critically important in that conversation as well. So we will definitely be engaging staff in that conversation and learning more about that. So if a levy failed, has the board discussed what main things would be affected or cut? No. I appreciate that question. I will say I have been here 14 years, and we are so thankful to have a very supportive community. Um, I would like to think that our community would pass our levy, but I also understand that people um, are in need of relief from taxes. So we haven't even had, we've had a few preliminary discussions about types of levies, what that would look like, how much, what it would cost, those kind of things. We have not gotten into any, cuts or anything like that. That is not I don't think that's the mentality we want to be in. I would say in my mind, it's more about we want to preserve all the things that are available to our students in Sycamore and not, I don't want to walk around and feel like we're threatening our community. I've seen that strategy in other communities and it doesn't feel good. I think we can be open and honest that we want to continue to support all the programs that we have, and make sure that our students have a well-rounded education. But I definitely don't want to feel like we're saying cut, 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 because nobody likes that word or mentality. So appreciate the question. The board definitely has not discussed that yet. The board will be discussing more about what kinds and what types and what does that look like, how much coming up in the near future, because if you weren't aware, you have to make that decision pretty quickly before you can put something on a ballot issue. So I know we've been looking at, we had been talking about November of 26 as a potential option, but we're also monitoring our finances. We're seeing, and we're trying to monitor our state to see what are they going to make decisions on, because that may make our decisions change based on, the when is the right time for our community. So again, I'm very proud of our fiscal stewardship over a 10-year period because it was only supposed to last 5. Um, and I hadn't talked about this, but I'm very thankful that our community passed our bond issue when they did, because I know a community that passed a bond issue shortly after ours, and our schools are similar in size. We spent about 40 million, and they spent about 60 million. And it just goes to show you how quickly the environment for construction changed. So I look at it as we got a $20 million discount, and I'm very thankful for it. And I'm glad our taxpayers in our district didn't have to incur that additional cost. We got about 10 minutes left. And if there are any other questions that are on your mind, I'm happy to answer them as best as I can. Really appreciate all the engagement tonight. I really appreciate all the hard questions, and these are the kind of conversations we want to have. So we'll be looking at having some in-person sessions throughout the year as well, not just virtual sessions, because again, we want to have some dialogue. We would love to engage with our community in a in-person setting as well. So Any other final questions? If not, I'll wrap us up for the evening. Well, not seeing any questions. Oh, got me with the last one. Is it possible for district schools to support rec level sports? Yeah, that's an interesting question. We've talked and we've done. I know our athletic director's done a great job engaging with some of our local community groups to try to help coordinate a little better. Um, that one is definitely a little more challenging because it takes a lot of different groups to make those things happen. But I'll do some thought on that and see if there's anything else that we can do. And um, I will absolutely the most recent question that came in will definitely add. I will definitely get with our team to find out more about this. It looks like something about some dividers between urinals and making sure that kids have privacy and some broken locks on stalls. I will definitely pass that along to our maintenance team and make sure that they are aware of that because we definitely don't want that to be a barrier for people to feel comfortable in the restroom. So, uh, well, thank you again. I really appreciate everyone reaching out and sending in questions. Um, Final question. Is there any talk of having girls flag football at the high school? I have heard some talk of this not only in OHSA but in our league. So definitely reach out to our athletic director. Mr. Ovington, he would be willing to talk to you about this and see what he knows from a league and state standpoint because he sits in all those meetings. But um, please reach out, use my email, call the office if you have other questions. We're always willing to talk with you. Certainly, if you have issues, it's okay to talk to your students' teachers, to your building administrators. They are here to help you and support you. Our district team is always willing to support you. But have a great evening. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you for all the great questions. And have a great evening. Have a good weekend. Take care, everybody.